So I'm going to let Rose Red join me for this little discussion. This is not an update, this is just an observation. And before I get started talking about it, I'm going to tell you how Hellraiser's first meal went. So I had her in her feeding tub about the same size as Rose Red's feeding tub is. And just like Rose Red, I used the feeding tongs to kind of put the mouse hopper in front of her. And it took all 30 seconds for me to realize by reading her body language. And I don't think Rose Red's really liking this, but reading her body language that she was too scared to take it. She was going into a ball, which is a very defensive move for a BRB, but point being, she was showing signs of being very nervous, uncomfortable, stressed, and I knew she was just not going to eat the mouse hopper. And so what I did was I put her in a smaller I think it's called Tupperware container, you know, the Glad ones, with the mouse hopper, and then I put the Tupperware Glad thingamajiggy with her inside of her enclosure and put a blanket over there to make it nice and dark, and she was a small space. I checked in an hour later, and the mouse hopper was eaten. Now, the point of the story that I am trying to get at is that when you get a new snake, and especially if the breeder has had the snake for a while, you know, the snake may only be used to being fed a certain way. And while Dave didn't tell me exactly how he fed it, just from the emails that we transpired back and forth, I do not believe he was using feeding tongs and handing it to her. I believe he was probably just throwing the pinky into her enclosure or into her feeding bin and leaving her alone with it. And why is this significant? Well, this is significant because she was not used to human presence. Where are you going, Rose Red? No, don't go there. I know, you're really bad. You're really bad. You're worse than an ox on the moon today. Yeah, you're worse. I don't know where you're going, though. But back to my story, or my lesson, I guess, is that she wasn't used to a human being there when she was eating, and so my very presence just frightened her. And when a snake is stressed or frightened, they aren't going to eat. So that is the one thing I want to talk about. Another thing I want to talk about is a definition of a refusal. Now, I've only had snakes since August, and I'm no by means extremely experienced, but from my observations, just a little bit, is that just because your snake, doesn't take the food in 5 minutes, or 1 minute, or 30 seconds, doesn't necessarily mean that it is refusing the food. It took Hellraiser 1 hour to eat it. When L1 was still with me, it took him or her 3 hours to eat their first meal. His or her first meal. So, point being is sometimes you do something like be in there when they're eating, that stresses them out, and they won't eat. It doesn't mean they're refusing it just means they're stressed out. So, there are tricks of the trade, so to speak. A few of them. One of them is putting them in a deli cup, if they're a hatchling, and kind of putting them in a dark place and leaving them alone with their pinky for a while. If they're bigger, just put them in a small enclosure. Don't put them in too big of an enclosure. There is the boiling the pinky method. I've only heard of it used with mouse pinkies. I don't know if they can be used with any bigger size feeder. I don't really think so, but mostly because it may explode. That's my reasoning why it's not common. And there is the braining technique, which is quite disgusting, actually. It's just as disgusting as it sounds, which is literally putting a hole into the rodent's head and spraying the brains all around. There's also the cutting method, or the splitting method, I think that's what it's called, where you cut some slits into the snake, into the mouse, and that will make it bleed and encourage the snake to eat more. And when I say mice, I am saying frozen thawed mice, not live mice. So, braining a live mouse is cruel. Anyway, I think maybe that's some ideas if you guys are having a little bit of trouble of getting your snakes to eat. And to always think, if it is a refusal, why did the snake refuse? Was the snake stressed, or was it just a flat-out refusal? I hope this was helpful a little bit, because I don't think everyone is aware when you first get a snake that it may not be used to the way you feed, and it may stress it out. Some snakes don't care if you're there, and some snakes may care if you're there. In all honesty, Nox the Moon didn't give two hoots if I was there. Rose Red, the first time I fed her, she didn't care. L1, L2 cared the first time. Pinhead and Gremlin, I really don't know because I didn't try to feed I didn't try to be there in the first feeding. I did put them in a deli cup and put a towel over it, not a paper towel over it to make it nice and dark. So I didn't even bother that time around. And with Hellraiser, I just wanted to, do it for you guys, and it just was not working. I may upload the video, and you will see that she's obviously showing signs of not being comfortable being filmed, not comfortable with me being there. She was taken out of the enclosure, but she's only been in there for 7 days. And sometimes snakes need a little more than 7 days to get used to their new environment. So I think I'm going to end this. I always get nervous when I let my snakes roam. As you see, I have not really given Rose Red very much freedom, because I am kind of slightly paranoid at her size. And Nox the Moon I give a lot more freedom to because she's huge, but the smaller they are, the more anxious I get because I've always had nightmares of them getting under the bed and me never finding them again. So, yeah, she's just trying to find honestly, Rose Red right now is just trying to find a hiding spot. It's most likely what she's doing. So, I'm going to let you guys go. We will bid you adieu. I hope this video was somewhat helpful. Until later, we shall see you, I guess.